Earlier this year, it was announced that the Subaru Crosstrek became the brand's best-selling vehicle here in the United States, outselling the Forester and Outback, which has taken everyone by surprise, including myself, because the Forester and Outback are affordable vehicles that are versatile and practical, but also provide a lot of value in the compact crossover and midsize crossover segments. But it goes one step further for the Crosstrek, where it's not only the best-selling vehicle for Subaru, it's the best-selling subcompact crossover in the United States. And in this video, we're going to find out why that is. Now, of course, back in May, we had checked out the 2024 Crosstrek with a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. But I believe it's the 2.5 that makes a huge difference. And in this video, we're going to take a deep dive into the Crosstrek, take a look at the exterior, the interior, take it out for a test drive, and also see why, if you are looking at buying a subcompact right now and you want to spend somewhere below $40,000, then maybe taking a look at the Crosstrek with the 2.5 might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I'd like to thank Subaru of Wakefield in Wakefield, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. The link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Subaru inventory. And speaking of inventory, Subaru of Wakefield is home to the largest selection of Subarus in New England. But right now, as you can tell, inventory is a bit thin. However, Subaru of Wakefield does have a handful of Crosstreks available on the lot as I speak, but they are selling out pretty quickly and they're receiving deliveries every day. So if you are looking at buying a Subaru, come on down, check out what they have. Also, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. Now on its third generation and just over a decade of production, the Subaru Crosstrek has become a household name. And while we may attribute its success to the practicality, comfort, and now performance it offers, it could simply come down to this vehicle's existence coinciding with a new car market that lacks appealing options below $30,000 and $40,000. Yet, the Crosstrek has many rivals in this price range, but they've all fallen short in one way or another. And despite this subcompact not being flawless, it appears that it's become the right vehicle at the right time for many shoppers, including the picky and difficult to appease millennial and Gen Z consumer demographic. Starting off with pricing, the Subaru Crosstrek Limited comes in at just under $31,000, and for 2024 is no longer the top trim for this crossover, since the Wilderness will now be the capable, rugged, and cooler option in the product line. Unlike the competitors that came before it, the Crosstrek has managed to defy the odds in a highly competitive market, despite being a lifted hatchback in essence, as it takes most of the design and dimensions from the Impreza. With a class-leading 8.7 inches of ground clearance, the Crosstrek is undoubtedly the most off-road worthy in its segment. But since this generation takes inspiration from the larger Outback, buyers are hopping into an affordable and economical crossover that's also the most well-rounded. The 2024 model year ushers in some rather drastic changes to the exterior, while simultaneously retaining the body lines and shape of the Crosstrek from prior generations, as Subaru is very conservative with their refreshes. To help this subcompact fall more in line aesthetically with its siblings, the Crosstrek does take some styling cues from the Outback, but there's other aspects of the design, such as the plastic cladding for the front wheel arches, that's shared with the WRX. Starting up top, thinner and sleeker LED steering responsive headlights and a reshaped hexagonal grille design does give off sportier vibes for 2024. And not seen on the prior generation is the thin gloss gray trim piece that flows from the headlights to the Subaru emblem. Now standard for all trims except the base model is LED fog lights to provide better visibility at night. And we can't forget that much like the rest of the lineup, the plastic cladding has been enhanced for the front fascia to once again emphasize the ruggedness this Crosstrek possesses. Moving over to the side profile, the Limited will be sitting on 18-inch aluminum alloy wheels with a dark gray and machine finish, but 17s do come standard for the base and premium. The third generation did experience a retuning of the suspension, adding some rigidity and stiffness to the on-road performance. However, even with the larger tires, ride comfort isn't diminished and shouldn't be an issue when going over uneven pavement. Further adding some color contrast on this model, dark gray finish folding side mirrors with integrated turn signal indicators brings a sportier and youthful vibe to the Crosstrek. And you'll also have blind spot detection for added safety. Then coming around to the back, as we discovered with the Premium that we had featured earlier in the year, Subaru gave their bestseller a cosmetic facelift for the rear fascia, with reshaped taillight housings that follow a similar design path to the Ascent, giving the Crosstrek a sportier and slightly more upscale look. As we've seen throughout the exterior, the plastic cladding has also been remolded around the reflectors, wheel arches, and rear bumper, beefing up the ruggedness for the Crosstrek. And not as noticeable is the dark gray accents, which differentiates the Limited from other trims. Under the hood, the Limited is powered by a 2.5-liter Boxer 4-cylinder engine, producing 182 horsepower and 178 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with a CVT. The key difference between this powertrain and the 2-liter that's found in the base and Premium is that the Crosstrek performs smoother and overall is more enjoyable to drive. Because of its size and weight, this subcompact crossover is light on its feet, both in terms of handling but also in a straight line, where you'll be more inspired but also have the confidence to quickly maneuver your way around slower motorists. While we wouldn't discourage you from choosing the smaller engine, the 2.5, which also powers the Sport, is a better package at the end of the day. Of course, with the Crosstrek, you'll have Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive system for year-round versatility and some off-road capability. And when it pertains to fuel economy, you're looking at right around 26 miles per gallon in the city and 33 miles per gallon on the highway. Stepping inside, the Limited comes with a list of features that should elevate your driving experience, especially at a price point below $40,000, where you'll be greeted by heated leather trim seats for both the driver and passenger, which is a nice upgrade over the cloth seats found in the Sport. This trim also gives you a leather-wrapped steering wheel, and as you'll notice immediately, orange contrast stitching adds some character to the interior. Much like we've seen throughout the years from Subaru, you'll have a small information display in between the analog gauges, and by using the buttons mounted on the steering wheel, you can scroll through a variety of information. For the Crosstrek, you'll also have Subaru's Intelligent Drive, which when activated affects engine response during accelerations. But also, during our test drive, there was some added weight to the steering, which provided a little feedback in sharper corners. Then glancing over to the infotainment system, you'll have an 11.6-inch touchscreen, with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility. While not equipped on our model today, onboard navigation is optional for the Limited. Amplifying the audio of your favorite music, the Harman Kardon Premium Audio System, with its 10 speakers, will make longer drives more fun for everyone in the Crosstrek. Despite Subaru moving away from their traditional dashboard layout with the large head unit, you'll still have physical buttons for the dual-zone climate control, and dials for the volume and tuning. The controls for the fan speed and AC can be found at the bottom of the screen, and is well within arm's reach, and should become second nature to use if you're hopping in from an older Crosstrek. With this user interface, it behaves very much like a touchpad, where you'll have icons that quickly get you to different menus. Of course, it's here where you can activate or deactivate some safety and vehicle settings if you desire. However, Subaru's EyeSight Driver Assist technology gives you added assurance when traveling with your family. As always, you will have a rear backup camera, but with the Limited, you'll also have rear cross traffic alert and reverse automatic braking for improved safety. Beneath the screen, you'll find a wireless phone charging pad and a USB-C and USB input. And then as we take a quick glance over to the center console, on the passenger side will be the switches for the 2-level heated seats, and there'll be a toggle for the electronic parking brake. For the center storage compartment, there'll be plenty of room for smaller items, more so than what you'll find from competitors. And to round out the front seating area, above, an optional power moonroof will let in some natural light to the interior. Now moving on to the second row, we're going to start off on the passenger side. And this seat has been adjusted all the way back and is somewhat on a recline. And I still have a few inches of legroom to work with here. Now, if you are looking at buying a Crosstrek right now and you're cross-shopping it with a Forester or an Outback, especially at this price point at around $35,000 for the Limited, and you're wondering, is the Crosstrek going to be family friendly enough for me and my children, or is this going to be enough if I do have friends that tag along with me on a road trip? And what I am going to say here is that with the Crosstrek's 37 inches of legroom, that will fall in line with other vehicles in this market, such as the Mazda CX-30. However, it does fall a bit short compared to the Outback and Forester, which come in at around 39 inches of legroom. So if you are somebody who's looking for a vehicle that is family friendly, you might want to hop into that Forester or Outback. But when you are comparing this to, say, a hatchback, it falls right in line and pretty much on par with other vehicles in this size and market. However, because you do get the versatility and all-wheel drive system, that right there makes the Crosstrek more appealing in my opinion. Now, when it comes to headroom, you do have a good amount of it. However, I do think that if you're on the height of 6 feet tall and above, you will be hitting your head on the headliner. However, for average-sized adults, I think everyone should be comfortable here. Now, moving on to the center seat, you are going to have some great placements for your feet. Now, you do have an aggressive center hump, which will take away from legroom and possibly shoulder room as well. Now, of course, for a vehicle in this market, you don't expect to squeeze in that third person, and I've never said the Crosstrek was going to be a vehicle where you're going to have 5 people overall in this crossover. However, if it is on a shorter drive, you might be able to squeeze in a smaller child. But I do think, though, that if you are looking for a vehicle that's a bit more spacious when it comes to shoulder room, definitely go with that Forester or Outback. Then on the driver's side, this seat is adjusted to someone of my height, around 5'5", and I have a good amount of legroom here where I can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the driving experience. Also, of course, with the Limited, the leather upholstery does give you some added comfort as well, making your time in the second row more pleasant. Also back here, you do not have 2 rear air vents mounted on the center console, which isn't too much of a surprise for a crossover in this market, but you do get a USB-C and USB input. And rounding out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now, coming around to the back, of course, you're not going to receive a power liftgate for the Crosstrek. That's not something we expect to see in this market, but also since the Crosstrek is pretty much a lifted version of the Impreza, it's a hatchback, and there's not many hatchbacks out there in any price range that gives you a power liftgate. But inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 20 cubic feet of room, which would be on par with other subcompact crossovers, but also hatchbacks as well. And one thing I really love about this vehicle is that I can trust it to have enough interior space for all my gear. I was able to fit all my camera gear today, no problem. So that's 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, a tripod, and a cooler on this very hot day, and still had more room for additional items and equipment. And if you are somebody who's looking at buying an affordable vehicle, but you also want versatility and practicality, that's really written all over the Crosstrek. It's a vehicle that can get you through deep snow, it can get you off-road, but also during those times when you are going to the grocery store or you're running errands, you have plenty of room to fit everything back here. Then with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right around 54 cubic feet, which overall would be better than the Mazda CX-30 and the new Dodge Hornet. Even though the Crosstrek is rather small, it's very spacious for the interior. And that's one of the reasons why I think this vehicle has taken over the subcompact crossover market, just because of its pricing, but also how much you can actually store back here, which I think is really perfect for a lot of Subaru buyers who do have active lifestyles. So if you are somebody that does go camping or skiing and snowboarding during the winter, you'll have plenty of room for all your gear. Also back here on both sides of the rear cargo area, you will have some cubbies for some smaller items, such as a couple of water bottles, car detail equipment, or maybe even a first aid kit. Better yet, beneath the floor mat, you are going to have a spare tire. So if you do encounter a flat on your road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. Then, of course, with the Subaru Crosstrek being a hatchback, you do get a rear cargo cover, which will keep all your valuable items out of sight. So if you are like me and you have camera gear or anything else of value, you can leave them back here and have that peace of mind knowing that no one will be able to peek in and steal what you have. And for the moment we've all been waiting for, let's take the Subaru Crosstrek with the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine out for a test drive. If there's one thing we've learned throughout the years with the Subaru Crosstrek is that we now have a better understanding of what the baseline is in the subcompact crossover market, or really just the sub $40,000 market in general. A lot of people are looking for a vehicle that gives them everything, whether it is the practicality, the versatility, or just the interior comfort. And the Subaru Crosstrek seems to be the one vehicle that everyone has decided is the best choice in this market. Now, the last time I filmed this vehicle, we had the 2-liter under the hood. This time we have the 2.5, and the 2.5 is going to make a world of a difference because it's going to be more powerful, and it's also going to give you a bit more confidence when you are entering highways like we are right now, or when you're passing slower drivers. But also for a vehicle of this size to have the same engine that's powering the Forester and the Outback, at least the Outbacks and Foresters with the 2.5, that's definitely going to go a long way for many customers who are looking for a vehicle that is subcompact, that they can tool around in the city, but also have that power for when they want to go on the highway or maybe even some back roads as well. Now we are going to go around the rotary to see what the handling is like, because for this generation, Subaru stiffened the suspension by around 10%. Also have the dual pinion steering column from the WRX. So I want to see now with the 2.5 if this vehicle is enjoyable to drive around tighter corners. Now unfortunately we do have a slower driver in front of us, so we're going to do this rotary one more time just to get a better idea. Even though at around 35 miles an hour, I do have a good amount of confidence heading into this corner. I do notice that the steering has stiffened up quite a bit from the last generation. One thing that Subaru has been working on is making their vehicles a bit more enjoyable to drive and a bit more engaging. Because Subaru, much like every other Japanese manufacturer out there, they have very light and vague steering feels, and that's really what I think a lot of buyers are kind of looking for in this segment. If you were somebody looking for an on-the-edge-of-your-seat experience, you'd probably go with a WRX. But I do think, though, that more so now for the 2024 model compared to where we were a couple of years ago, the Subaru Crosstrek has kind of slot into place as being the potential WRX hatchback. I just wish Subaru would go there. They've definitely given us some glimpses and some hopes, especially giving us that dual pinion steering rack, which I think is definitely making a huge difference here as I am going around this rotary. But I would like to see Subaru go the whole mile. This is really where the steering becomes far more active and athletic. Once again, of course, you are going to have that body roll, so you're not going to really be throwing this around in the corners. But I love the fact that the handling has tightened up. It definitely gives you more of a sportier experience for a crossover in this market. As we're going over the bumps and imperfections on this road, the Crosstrek is handling them very well. And the suspension, even though it has been stiffened, it does give you that comfort that you're looking for. Obviously, we did the 18-inch wheels, so that might take away from some of the on-road driving comfort. However, you don't really notice that, especially with this chassis and the platform that Subaru is using. The Subaru's global platform has come a long way, but also one thing that Subaru's really been emphasizing throughout the years is interior refinement, but also interior insulation. And you really don't hear a lot of that outside world entering the cabin. So let's see what this vehicle can really do. I'll spend a few minutes on the highway and see if we can pass some slower drivers here and just see what the 2.5 is capable of with the CVT. Plenty of passing power. What I also love too is that the CVT does mimic the gear shifts. Personally, I think Subaru CVT is the best CVT we see in this segment, and also amongst its domestic rivals from Nissan, Toyota, and Honda. And that's one of the reasons why I think that if you are somebody who has closely been looking at the Honda HR-V, that vehicle is so lethargic in a straight line. It just takes away from what Honda is offering with that vehicle, even though it has been improved for the 2023 and 2024 model years. But with the Crosstrek, you feel as though you're driving a vehicle with a traditional automatic, which I think definitely goes a long way, especially for buyers who maybe are a bit more enthusiastic with their on-road performance and they want something that does feel a bit more enjoyable to drive, and that's what the Crosstrek with the 2.5 is definitely offering. On the brakes, nice and strong. You don't need to travel too far in that brake pedal to slow the Crosstrek down, which again is a bit of a surprise to see for a vehicle that's under $40,000. A lot of Japanese vehicles, they don't have the most refined braking or acceleration points, but the Crosstrek definitely has a nice balance there for sure. One more time getting on the highway. And for sure, the handling was definitely an emphasis for Subaru for the 2024 model year. Like I said before, this vehicle is not athletic or agile by any means, but compared to where we were a couple years ago, this is a vast improvement for sure. Now, one thing I do want to point out here on this test drive, because it was brought up a number of times in the comment sections during my last time I featured the Crosstrek, the blind spot detection monitor is now on the side mirror cap, and it's actually smaller than it was before. A lot of vehicles in this market had the blind spot detection on the mirror itself, and I personally hate that because sometimes I can't see it if there is a vehicle in my mirror. Also, some of the Subarus, you did notice that you had a larger emblem on the mirror cap, but personally I think it's the right size. You do see it light up in your peripheral vision, which I think is really great, but also isn't too distracting. But speaking of vision, you do have plenty of it. Nice panoramic view. A-pillars are super thin since it is a hatchback, so you won't have any blind spots when you are approaching intersections or red lights. And taking a look out back, you do have the headrest in the way, and since the Crosstrek is a hatchback, you can have a more thinner window. So keep all of that in mind. You might be taking a second glance at what's behind you. In the subcompact crossover market, you have a number of options to choose from, whether it is the Subaru Crosstrek, Toyota Corolla Cross, Mazda CX-30, Honda HR-V, or maybe even the Volkswagen Taos. But the reason why so many people are drawn into the Subaru Crosstrek is that at around $30,000 to $35,000, you're getting pretty much everything you could possibly want in a subcompact. You get standard symmetrical all-wheel drive, you get 8.7 inches of ground clearance. On this model, we have the 2.5-liter four-cylinder engine, which in my opinion, that powertrain being brought in for this model was the beginning of this crossover's emergence, not only for the Subaru brand, but also in this market as well. And I do find it rather interesting that Mazda is now offering all-wheel drive standard as well, because I think that is to rival what Subaru has here with this vehicle. Buyers are looking for versatility. They're also looking for capability and practicality, and that's what the Crosstrek is offering. Now, of course, this isn't the largest subcompact crossover out there. You are going to find vehicles that offer a bit more space behind the second row seats and also for rear legroom and headroom. But I think buyers are more than happy to sacrifice that, where they're not spending an arm and a leg for a vehicle that's refined, really high quality for what you're paying, and also a vehicle that you can go through deep snow and mud no problem. But also, if you are somebody that does have an active lifestyle, you can go on the trails, which the Mazda CX-30 is not going to give you, neither is the Dodge Hornet or Honda HR-V. So the Crosstrek is kind of on its own in this market. It's very individualized and unique, and it's going to go one step further when the Wilderness trim is brought in later this year. All in all, though, with the Subaru Crosstrek, you're getting a fantastic vehicle, whether you go with the 2-liter or 2.5. Personally, I would go with the 2.5 because that's where I think this vehicle is really at its best. The 2-liter, still at 152 horsepower for a crossover of this size and weight, probably more than adequate. But with the 2.5, you just get that extra oomph when you are getting on the highway or just when you are on those back roads, which I think really gives you a bit more confidence, but also really adds some inspiration on those weekday commutes. Now, even though you're not going to get an experience like you're going to find with, say, a Forester or even an Outback, especially like the Touring XT that we have for the Legacy and Outback, where you're going to have the Nappa leather interior or soft touch materials on the dashboard, with the Crosstrek, though, you're getting a vehicle that does feel pretty high quality for around $30,000 to $35,000, and it is a vehicle that I think your money goes a very long way, which some competitors you really can't say the same for. But also comes down to the fact that you're really not missing out on anything for a smaller vehicle. You're getting the exact same packages and features that you might find in a Forester and Outback, which is why you don't really feel as though you're cheapening out by going with a smaller vehicle. And as I talked about earlier in this video, you do have enough room to fit your friends or maybe some small children in the second row, so really there's nothing to complain about with this crossover. And I just think that in 2023, heading into 2024, with car prices as high as they are, the Crosstrek really is a steal right now on the market, and that's one of the reasons why it's very difficult to find these on dealer lots because people just can't get enough of what this vehicle is providing. Right now, Subaru is at a point where they can do no wrong, and every single decision that they're making seems to be the right one. And the Crosstrek is definitely one of those vehicles that they've hit a home run with consistently, and a lot of it is because Subaru listens to their customers. Subaru buyers don't want drastic changes. Now, of course, for the 2024 model, you do get the 11.6-inch touchscreen, which is a vast departure from what we saw from the prior generation with the smaller 6 and 8-inch touchscreens. But when you take a look at the interior as a whole, not much has changed. Now, they have made some minor improvements, of course, with the suspension, also the steering as well, which I think a lot of buyers are definitely going to enjoy and appreciate. But at the end of the day, it's the same crossover you've always known and loved, and that's why I think this subcompact crossover has become the best-selling vehicle in its segment. So to quickly wrap up this review, the 2024 Subaru Crosstrek with the 2.5 once again is a home run hit for the brand, but also it's a jack of all trades, especially in the subcompact crossover market, where it's practical, comfortable, affordable, and with the 2.5, it's enjoyable to drive as well, since you do get a good amount of horsepower to pass slower drivers and also enter highways safely. But also for the 2024 model, you do get the larger infotainment system that's found in the Outback, Legacy, and Ascent, and I think that will draw in a younger demographic, but also it's a great way to propel this vehicle into the future as well. Some buyers who prefer the analog feel of the last generation will still love the fact you do have physical buttons and dials for the climate control, but also the volume and tuning as well. Of course, you don't get a full digital gauge cluster, which is really not much of a surprise right now in this market. Not a lot of vehicles offer that, but I do like the fact that it has this old school analog feel while also still being somewhat futuristic at the same time. But when it comes to the overall driving experience and ownership experience, you're going to love the fact that this crossover is versatile, it's capable, but also enjoyable as well, which is why this vehicle has really propelled itself to the top in this market. And really, at around $35,000, I don't know what else you could ask for a vehicle in this segment. Now, of course, if you want to save a few $1,000s, go with the Sport, but you are going to be missing out on some extra features such as these leather seats, which are very comfortable. But really, though, at around $35,000, this is a well-equipped vehicle, but also one that I think you're going to enjoy on a daily basis. But also, if you are an adventurer, you go out to the mountains to ski and snowboard, or you're just somebody who likes going camping as well, this is going to be a great companion for you when you do hit those trails and the off-road. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.